So, did you hear what President Obama had to say today about women? Oh, my goodness. Coach Greg Adams basically did a live stream on this topic, and I will link it below. So this story is from CNN. Former President Barack Obama said there would be, quote, significant improvement across the board if countries were led by women. Well, how about that? The magic vag. That's all we need. Solve the world's problems. We just need to put more women in power. Isn't that what the left has been telling us for a long time? Well, it's because women are oppressed. If we just had more Wammens in power, things would be great. Kumbaya. No wars or any of that kind of stuff. I think Camille Paglia said something like, I don't know the quote, but something on the order, if women had been in charge, we'd still be living in mud huts. Hey, that's her words, not mine. Am I here, Mr. Hamster, saying that women can't be leaders? Of course not. Of course women can be leaders. They've shown it throughout history with monarchies, with kingdoms, with prime ministers, and all kinds of great stuff. And some was good, some was bad. Kind of a mixed record. Just kind of like men. Not every man is born to be a leader. And certainly not every woman. But the vag power apparently has hypnotized President Obama. Here's what he said. This was a conference in Singapore. Quote, now women, I just want you to know you are not perfect. Oh my God. He went against the vag. No. President Obama, all women are perfect. All men are flawed. All women are always victims and all men are always oppressors. You haven't been reading the talking points as of late, have you? Glad I could help you refresh your memory. I'm absolutely confident that for 2 years, if every nation on earth was run by women, you would see a significant improvement across the board on just about everything. Living standards and outcome. Oh, whoa. No mention that if these women get in power, there suddenly would be all these rights granted to women that they currently don't have in the West, which there are absolutely zero number of rights that women don't have in the Western world. Compared to men, they have more rights under the law. But let's not beat that dead horse again. If you look at the world and look at the problems, it's usually old people, usually old men. Let me add in there a little bit for you, Mr. Obama. White men, right? Not black men. No. It's only old, dusty white men. And they're not getting out of the way, he said. It is important for political leaders to try and remind themselves that you're there to do a job, but you are not there for life. You are not there in order to prop up your own sense of self-importance or your own power. Oddly, Mr. President, I don't recall you coming out for, say, constitutional amendment for term limits, because that would get a lot of these old white dusty farts out of Congress every 6 or 12 years. No. As for getting out of the way of women, because we're all old men, old people, old white men getting out of the way, Mr. President, you had ample opportunity to get out of the way for Hillary Clinton, who would have been the first female president of the United States. But oddly, you didn't, did you? Now, granted, you appointed Secretary Clinton to Secretary of State, and you had a lot of women in your cabinet. Yeah, that's fantastic. So does Trump, but he doesn't get credit because there's always something evil about those women, isn't there? Also, Mr. President, you had every opportunity to choose a female vice president. You could have chosen, a lot of, players in the Democrat Party or whatever, CEOs, right? Even military leaders, a female. You could have had a female vice president for 8 years. Yet you didn't, did you? I can kind of get you don't want to get out of the way yourself because you want to be in the position of power. But you certainly could have threw a bone at a female for vice president, but you didn't. You picked none other than the dustiest, oldest white man in the freaking country, Joe Biden, who now wants to get the bigger office as president, right? So you could have done all these things. You could have passed constitutional amendments, equal rights, you could have equal paid, you could have done all this stuff for the Wammens because they're so fucking oppressed, but you didn't do shit. And yet you're here saying, wow, if it wasn't for the oppression of old white men not getting out of the way, women could just succeed and the world would be fucking fantastic with equal outcomes. Did you notice his word? Outcomes. This is important. So I guess President Obama figures, if we just throw some chicks here and there and all over the world, every country, if they were run by Wammens, it'd be so much better. What a bunch of bullshit. And sexist as you can possibly be. If you came out and said, you know what, I think if we only had men running every country in the world, things are going to be good, in a couple of years, be just really great and all that stuff. Well, not you, but if Donald Trump said something like that, what do you think the reaction would be, Mr. President? I'm just curious. What you think that would go over well? Would he be called a racist, sexist, homophobic Nazi? Not Stalin or Mao, but certainly Hitler. But yet you say the same thing against half of the human race on this planet, and nobody says a word. Of course, girl power, you go. Give me a prime minister job. Make me something. Well, you should probably work for it. That's oppression. I have a vagina. I'll put the link below. James Maxwell, thank you for listening.